Well, hello, Village Heights. Thank you so much for being with us today. And to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. Thank you so much. Whether you are a literal mother or you mother somebody, I'm sure the women out there who are mothering somebody, thank you for being our mothers. We really appreciate that. In life, we always end up searching for answers. It doesn't matter the day. It doesn't matter the time. We are always looking for answers. And depending on the situation, those demands get more feverish, right? When you are emotional, the more emotion that you have, the more severe you are in asking for answers. And honestly, the more emotional we are, the more blind that we come to answers. Because sometimes the answer's right in front of us, but because we're so emotionally overtaken, our mind is it's like chaos in there. It's too full of everything else that we can't even think straight. So there is a method that we have found. It's called the Maieutic Method, and this method actually helps this process. Because sometimes your mind can get so bogged up that you're not seeing what's right in front of you. So today, we're going to get a little philosophical through this collection. We're going to take it back to school a little bit. Anybody ever heard of the Maieutic Method? Anybody? Well, Tanner, okay. Thanks, Tanner. Well, now tomorrow at work, you can sound really smart. Or, at home, or when you go see your mom today, you can sound really smart because you learned the Maieutic Method. And this is what it is. It's eliciting new ideas and knowledge in the mind of a person by asking questions, assisting others in bringing forth ideas and concepts previously latent in their mind. This is also coined to Socrates. It's a part of the Socratic method. And there's a whole argument about it, like it was actually Plato's, whatever. I'm not getting into that argument right now. But majorly is given to him, so I'm going to go with that. And he was born 400 years. He died 400 years before Jesus. And so there's a debate of who came up with it first? This method, was it Jesus or was it Socrates? Actually, Jesus might have been here on earth in that time, but he's always existed, so it's Jesus's, right? So God has always existed, and you can find throughout the Old Testament when he gives prophecy, he asks questions. He asks these obvious questions because his people are not seeing it straight. So if there's really an argument out there, it was Jesus. He was first. And it's the process of answering a question with a question. And I'm glad today is Mother's Day, and we're kicking it off now because that's something that mothers do really well, right? When I was a kid and I did something, my mom would go, "Is that something that you wanted to do?" And I'm like, "I don't think so. I don't think that's something I wanted to do now. Is that the outcome that you wanted?" "No, it's not the outcome." And she helps me see the logic of it. Hannah does it with our kids. She says to our kids, "Is that something that you would have wanted to do?" And they're like, No, it's not something that I would have wanted to do. And even for husbands and boyfriends, women do this for us. Is that something you wanted to do? No, it's not something I want to do. They help tie the logic together. It's actually, in Greek, it's translated to midwifery. It's not meant to win an argument or to end an argument. It's a way of assisting in intelligent development. It's a way to help us logically connect the dots, because the idea is the answer's there. Usually when a parent asks, "Is that something you want to do?" it's because they're saying, "You know better. You know the answer to this question, so I'm going to let you draw the dots so that in your mind you can birth this idea." That's why it's called midwifery. They're helping you by asking the right question. I'm going to help you birth the right answer, the right thing that you should have done. Because the answer you already know. And that's what kind of happens in the logic of it all. So the logic is, did you want to do that? And then you kind of remember things from the past of "Oh, I should have remembered this. I should have reacted this way." And what it does is it connects the dots in your mind, so then it all makes sense, right? So Jesus actually did this many, many times. He used this Maieutic method to help us humans understand something we should have understood already. He's recorded of asking over 100 questions in the gospel. Over 100. Now imagine that. He's come to this earth and he's done some things, right? And he's the teacher. Everybody wants answers, but he starts asking the questions, when they aren't getting it. So to kind of forecast, to kind of show you what's going to happen in this collection, to get you excited about it, because I'm excited about it, today we're going to talk about being in a storm. And Jesus asked the question, why are you so afraid? Next week, it's going to be if you're in the need of a miracle. And Jesus asked the question, do you believe I can do this? In the third week, it's going to talk about if you have an ongoing challenge in your life. And Jesus says, do you want to be well? And then last, we're going to finish off with spiritual doubts. If you have any spiritual doubts in your life, Jesus says, why do you doubt? Why do you doubt? So we're going to jump right into Mark and get back to talking about being in a storm. So where we're jumping in is Jesus had been teaching all day from a boat, right? He'd been, in this time, they were smart about it. They didn't have a PA system like we have, so they had to use nature. And so what they did is they would go stand in water areas, get in a boat, and the water would actually take the sound and bounce it. And so it would spread the sound to a larger group of people that you could hear. It would make it louder, right? And so Jesus gave one of those best sermons, right? And in his Beatitudes, some really cool stuff. He talked about the sower. He talked about the lamp on a stand, the growing a seed, and he talked about the mustard seed. And some of those you would go, oh, I've been in church. I've heard that those are powerful parables, right? But we didn't know at the end of this, after he did all that, the pulpit that he was using was going to become the very illustration for teaching the disciples something and teaching us something. So that's where we're going to pick up, right? So he talked about all those parables, life-changing, really cool stuff. And then we hit in Mark 4:35 through 41. It says, that day, when evening came, he said to the disciples, let us go over to the other side. Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along, just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said, Teacher, don't you care if we drown? He got up, rebuked the wind and the waves. Quiet, be still. The wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? They were terrified and asked each other, who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. So I did a little research on it, and you can look it up for yourselves. The Sea of Galilee, it's actually, as of 2019, it's 695 feet below sea level, right? And it's surrounded by all of these hills. So when you're in this sea, you can't really see out of it. You're in it, and you can't see out of it. So when a storm is coming, you don't really know that it's coming. It's just all of a sudden on top of you, because he rolls over the hill, and then it's just chaotic, serious, mess, all of a sudden, right? And that's kind of where they found themselves. And what they were learning, and what we have learned through this process, is it's common, even though we have a life with Jesus, it's common to be blindsided by a storm. Very common. It happens. Just because you are a believer and Jesus is with you doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to avoid everything hard. If you've been a believer for long enough, you know that to not be true. Storms come, and sometimes not literal storms, because storms come in all forms. Your job could be going great. You could be up for a raise. Things could be all going awesome. Then all of a sudden, bankruptcy. All of a sudden, layoffs begin, right? And then the storm is there. You don't know what's happening. You're kind of scared. You could think life is going great, everybody's healthy in your family, and then you go for that just normal doctor's checkup. And then you have to leave with bad news. Something you got to go back and tell your family. Storm, chaos, mess. You could be raising a kid. You know, you have a teenage kid. And I'm getting close to those years, and I'm excited, but also terrified, because you could have your teenage kids, and they could be doing great. Then all of a sudden, you hear about something that they're doing, and your heart sinks, and it's like, oh no, what have I done? How have I messed this up? Chaos, storm, waves, right? Sometimes you can look at somebody's life and think, oh man, they got the beautiful home. They look like they're doing great. They must be doing awesome. And you have no idea. They're actually 2 payments behind, and they don't know if they're going to be able to keep their house. Looks can be deceiving. Same things happen in marriages. We can look at somebody's marriage and like, oh, they look like they're happy. They're doing all the right things. They must be awesome. But have no idea how terrible it is at home. Our culture has gotten really good at faking good marriages. And so a lot of the times we get surprised by it. We're like, how did that happen? I thought they were doing awesome. You have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. And some people, you look at them and they don't have any huge responsibilities in their life. They don't have anything that's weighing them down. They must have no problems. Life must be great. But you have no idea that every night they're having to cry themselves to sleep because of some issue that they don't know what to do with or how to conquer it, or they didn't even invite it into their life, but they're having to deal with it. Storms come in many forms and fashions in our life. And sometimes a literal storm. We live in Houston, people. There's probably going to be one this afternoon that wasn't forecasted, right? And we are hurricane nation here, okay? A couple years ago, there was a 2-mile by 2-mile wall of water that was coming, and we didn't know what to do about it. You put a bathing suit on? Do you get a raft out? I don't know. What do you do in that situation? Storms come. They can blindside you and flip you upside down. So there's two things. There's 2 things I want you to remember when you're in a storm, no matter what the storm looks like, right? So if you're taking notes, this is time to start taking notes, right? Number 1, you're in the storm with His presence. You're in the storm with His presence. Mark 4:37-38 says, "A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped." Can you just imagine that? Calm waters, all of a sudden the whole boat is filling up, and there's wind and there's waves, right? Its chaos has begun. And Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. It's that question we have is like, what are you doing, Jesus? Can you not see the situation here? At any moment now, you can jump into action and do your thing, right? How is he still sleeping? We question also, if God is with us, why am I going through this? You ever had that in your life when you're like, I've been praying every day, I've read my scriptures, and now I'm in this storm. How is this possible? If he loves me so much, why am I in pain right now? This is what I want to tell you. Having Jesus in the boat doesn't mean the storm's not going to rock you. But having Jesus in the boat means that he's not going to let you sink. He's not going to let you sink. He's there, and the storm is going to come, and you're going to feel it, but he's not going to let you sink. He is in the storm with you. He is with you. Even though he might not be responding. That ever happened to you? You're like, Lord, where are you? I feel like you've left me. You left me to die in this situation. I did something to make you mad or whatever it may be, and then you're not here with me. When it comes to his presence or just presence in life, there's actually a study done, and they've learned that people actually live longer when something is living in their house, right? So there was a study done that started in 1950, meaning they just took the information, started in 1950, and they ended it in 2019. I wonder why they ended it in 2019, right? 2020 happened. And so over that span of years, they did this study, and they were researching people that have heart attacks. And they were wondering if they have a pet, will it affect their risk of a heart attack? And so what they found was actually fascinating. There was a 65% reduction in the risk of a heart attack if they had a pet with them. Now, the study was done with dogs, right? I don't want to say anything that dogs are better or anything like that, but it was done with dogs. But they've also found that it doesn't matter. It could be a dog, it could be a bird, a rabbit, hamster, fish, ferret, hedgehog, certain kinds of cats. Now, I'm not a cat fan, guys. I'm not going to lie. I'm glad that you love cats. Whoever loves cats out there, and they're good for you, and you can have all of them. But it doesn't matter what it is. There's something about having something else living that cares about you, that you can see, that causes you to live longer. It makes you feel better. So in my life, now, I'll go through things, right? Torment, chaos, mess. and I will keep a cool composure. I am totally calm through it. Hannah hates it, right? She's like, why aren't you freaking out right now? This is a freak out moment, right? And there's other people in my life like, how are you so calm? And it's not that I've always been this way, and it's not that there might be a hurricane going on inside of my mind or my heart at the moment, but I'm calm and cool in demeanor because I've experienced some things, right? I've had some major storms in my life that I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I thought it's over. Bankruptcy is going to happen. I'm going to have to switch professions, or something is going to have to change, because I didn't see a way out of it, right? But because I didn't deny Jesus, because I remembered I'm in his presence, he was able to take me through these storms, and I saw the other side. And so because of that, I know that no matter what the storm is, his strength is with me, his grace is with me, his power is with me, because his presence is with me. So, with all that said, remember this: never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. I'll say it again. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. We find this throughout Scripture. In Psalm 46:1, it says, God is my refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. In Hebrews 13:5, it says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with whatever you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. And you find it interesting that it talked about money right there. Money can really scare us, guys. Lack of money can really make us think that we've been abandoned. But he's also actually, that where it says, I'll never leave you and I never will forsake you, he's referencing back to something in Deuteronomy when Moses was talking to Joshua, right? So Moses, yeah, you remember the guy that, brought the plagues, brought all the crickets, that just messed up with Pharaoh, the snakes, everything like that, the blood, the lamb, all that stuff, right? And then he took all his people out, Israelites out of Egypt, and there was a pillar of fire that came down, and then Moses literally split the sea, and then when he got on the other side of the sea, it crashed in on the enemies. And then he went up on a mountain and saw the tuchus of God. He couldn't see the front of God because it would be too much. It would melt him. But he saw the tuchus of God. That's all God would let him see as he exited out the door. And then on Moses, God basically brought down literally food from heaven, right? It was meat and bread and all this kind of just coming down from the heaven, right? Okay, imagine. Now you're next in leadership. You have to follow up with that guy. That guy. You can imagine Joshua was nervous. And so Moses is talking to Joshua, and he's telling him, look, God's already told me there's this river that they got to pass. And he's like, I can't make it past this river. He's already told me that. I'm not going to pass this river. You're next. You're the one that's going to take him past this river. And there's these enemies that we defeated on this side, and there's enemies on that side, but don't worry. God's already told me you're going to defeat them. He's going to take care of them for you. All you got to do is be willing to go. No matter how hard it is, just be the leader. Just keep going, and God's going to take care of it, right? And so this is what he says to him in Deuteronomy 31:6. It says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. The Lord, your God, goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And then in Psalm from King David, again it says in 23:4, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I love it how it says your rod and staff. A shepherd, emulating a shepherd can't beat off a wolf if you're too far away from him. So for a shepherd to be able to use a rod and a staff to protect and comfort you, he's got to be close to you, right? That's what he's saying about God, that God is always right there with you. He's always ready to help. And if you will just acknowledge his presence, you just remember that he's there. So number one, you're in the storm with his presence. And so number two, brings us number two, you're in the storm for his purposes. If you go back and read and research the text, it says that Jesus was the one who said, let's go to the other side. The trip was actually Jesus' idea. Do you think Jesus was fooled by the storm? You think he was surprised? He's God. He was not surprised by the storm. It was actually his idea to go into the storm, so it was a part of his plan for them to end up in the storm. He knew he was going to take a nap, curled up like a kitty in the front of he knew that was going to happen. And he knew the storm was going to come. So now we know that going to the storm was his plan. And then that makes you wonder, does God cause the storms that happen in our life? Does he make these things happen? They didn't experience the storm because they were out of God's will. They experienced the storm because they were in God's will. There's many times in my life, because I grew up a Christian, right, in public school and sports and all that. There was times when I was confronted with a situation, and I would say, I don't really do that. I mean, I don't judge you. Do whatever you're going to do, but that's not me. And it made me kind of an outcast. And so then I was literally thrusted into a chaotic mess storm with my peers and people around me just because I was a Christ follower. Just because of that. So you can imagine how is that possible? Why does that happen? And the question always comes up. Does God cause our storms? And honestly, I don't have an answer for you. I really don't have one for you. And you're thinking he caused a storm. Really, maybe not. I can't tell you if he caused it or allowed it, but I can tell you he always uses it. I can tell you he always uses it. Because if he's in the storm with you and you acknowledge his presence within the storm, he can take that storm and turn it into something useful. In my life, every time I've let Jesus into the storm, I said, let's do this together, Jesus. Help me out of this situation. He has turned it into his purpose. His purpose is way better than any purpose that I could have for anything in my life. And so when I do that, he takes it, he transforms it, he makes it something cooler, better, more useful for my life and everybody's lives around me. And there's nobody, there's probably few, but James knows this well. James, we're about to read in James. James was the brother of Jesus. And so when it finally came to the climax of the story and they all realized, oh, he is God, right? He is the Savior. Can you imagine the brother of James? Because he grew up a brother to Jesus. And I'm sure he was a brother to Jesus and how brothers treat brothers. And he's like, oh, great. Here comes the perfect child again. Here comes Jesus. I'm going to try to trip him, mess him up. I'm going to lie about him. I'm going to tell mom he did this thing when he didn't do this thing. And hopefully to tatter his image, I'm sure that happened. But later on in life, when he realized that, oh, wow, he really is the Savior of the world, could you imagine the feeling that James felt? This whole time in my life, out of all the storms I faced, all the problems, the Savior of the world was literally in my home, and I didn't know it. I didn't acknowledge his presence. Can you imagine where I would be? The opportunities that I would have had. Nobody knows that better than him. So through that lens, listen to this. James 1:2-4, it says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking of anything. He's telling you, sometimes God is trying to get your attention with a storm so that you can persevere through and learn something. In this storm in Scripture, Jesus was teaching the disciples something. In our storms, and through that one we read, God is trying to teach us something. He wants us to hear it. Because sometimes you can't learn it in any other way. Sometimes you need a little pain and anguish to get your attention. So before we planted Village Heights, I always thought, Lord, I can never plant a church or be a lead pastor because there's someone smarter, someone better, someone more equipped for the job. I'm surely there's someone out there that could do this job better than me. But I kept asking God, what do you want me to do, Lord? What your will for my life? What's the next step? What's the next? And he kept telling me, I want you to plant a church, right? I want you and Hannah to go start a new church in this area. And I kept saying, I don't know about that. And so because I kept ignoring and I kept asking, God kept telling me. And finally, God was like, either you stop asking or I'm going to make you uncomfortable. I'm going to bring some chaos in your life. I didn't stop asking, so you can imagine what happened next, right? Chaos ensued. Mess ensued. He needed to use a little pain, a little anguish, a little storm to get my attention, right? To help me learn a lesson. And as a minister, a lot of you have asked me this question, and it's okay to ask. I understand it's confusing. You're like, what do you do? I know on Sundays you do a thing, right? I know you're here and you're talking right now, but the rest of it, what do you do? How does this work? What do you do during the week? So my week is usually, I have no idea. Sometimes I do, because it's built around people, right? And people are messy and chaotic and full of storms and things happen, right? And so sometimes I'll have a plan and then that plan gets derailed, whatever. So part of my life, I feel championed and feel really good if I can craft out a great week where I know that I'm efficient, I do a lot of things, doing the most, and that's a bad thing from what I understand now to say, but sometimes it feels that way, I'm doing the most. And when I'm meeting and accomplishing things efficiently, I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders, right? I've got it together. Lord, you're welcome. I'm in the service of the Lord. Here we go. So last week, on Thursday, my plans did not go to plan, okay? So last week, I was in a good groove, right? And so Thursday came, and sometimes death is inevitable. People die, and they call on me to come to a funeral, right? And so because it's unexpected, you can't really plan out weeks of a funeral. It's going to happen, right? You don't know that's going to happen. So I get a call, hey, we got a funeral on this day. Can you do it? Of course, I'll be there. That was Thursday, right? So Thursday, we roll up to Thursday, and I've got a plan working out. That Sunday, we had some people coming over that morning, and I was like, finishing out the message, that I was going to speak, and it's about, the funeral's at 12 o'clock, right? And so I got my suit on, which is a big deal. I don't ever wear suits. And guys, if you wear suits, good on you. I don't know how you do it every day, but it's a lot of layers. A lot of layers have to go on. I feel like I'm choking myself, all that kind of stuff, right? But I get it. I'm feeling good. I'm like, this day, it's going to be a winner. I know it. It's going to feel good at the end of the day, efficient. I won, right? I get to the door. Hannah sees me, and she's like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Then I head out the door. And so we have two vehicles in our house. We have a SUV that's a little newer, and then we have a truck that is very useful, but it's a lot older. It's a beast, 4-door, diesel, big thing, right? And I was like, we have to kind of split our attention. If we're going to win today, if we're going to be efficient today, we got to split, right? So I'm like, I'm going to take the truck. I'm going to go to this funeral, and I'm going to come back, right? I try to avoid using the truck because it is older, and I like to use it for projects for the church, whatever. So, but I needed to go to this funeral, right? So I'm on I-45, right? I'm rocking it. But before I got in the car, before I started the car, I started the car, and I looked at the needle. It said 1/4 of a tank. I have never in my life, I vowed when I was a teenager, I would never run out of gas. I will never be that person that runs out of gas. And to this day, till Thursday, that had never happened to me, right? And so I looked at it and I was like, I knew how far I needed to go. I knew, I can make it there, definitely. I might even be able to make it back, but I'm going to go to the funeral because I don't want to be late. And then after the funeral, I'll get gas, come home, whatever. So I'm heading up there. I'm driving this big, it's a big truck, and I'm riding up there. I'm about a third of the way there. I'm about in Spring at this point from downtown, if you know what I'm talking about, going north. So I'm on I-45, which is like 5-6 lanes. I don't even know. It's too much to count. And I'm in the far left lane in the center. All of a sudden, the truck goes, I'm like, well, that's weird. That's an old truck, whatever. And I start hitting the gas and And I'm like, oh, no. It's happening. And I look down at the meter, and it's like, it's almost to E. And I'm like, what is happening? How is this possible, right? And then eventually just, because it's a loud truck. When the engine has died, right? And so it dies. So I got to get over 5 or 6 lanes with a massive truck that doesn't keep speed because it's massive, and it's slowing down. So I throw my hazards on. I'm honking my horn, trying to come over, and people are like honking at me, and I'm like, come on, just let you. Obviously, there's a problem here. Let me over. And I'm like throwing my nose out. I finally get over the side. I miss the exit because people were not being nice in my storm. And so I missed the exit. So I end up in the median for an on-ramp in this little triangle that was just big enough to fit this big old truck, right? And it's one of those moments where you're like, beep, you hit your head. I'm like, God, why? Why is this happening? Full suit on. I'm like, well, I'm going to be late for this funeral. I got to hurry. I'm like, I'm going to have to deal with this later because honestly, at this point, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was wrong with the truck. I don't know why it broke down. And so I jumped out of the truck. I locked it. And I kind of looked at it, and I looked at traffic. And then in a suit, people don't care that if you're in a suit on the freeway they don't care, okay? It's like Frogger. I was trying to get onto the other side, and then I get on a culvert, and I have to go down a hill, and then I get to the feeder, which is also very dangerous. It's like 4 lanes, and again, they don't care, so it's like Frogger again. And I finally get over the side. I'm out of breath, just thinking I'm about to die in a suit. Well, I guess you could just put me straight in because I already had a suit on. And so I just, bing. I just had that one. That one's for free, guys. That was for free. And so I get to the other side. I call an Uber because I'm not that far away from where it is. I call Hannah, and Hannah's like, "Oh, there's this ordinance that if you leave it there too long, they'll tow it." And I'm like, "Oh, I won't be. I'll just come and do this funeral. I'll come back and I'll deal with it." I'm thinking hopefully it's just out of gas, right? And so Hannah's like, "Okay." And so she jumps in her car. And finally get in the Uber, I make it, I do the thing, I do the funeral, I speak at it, and Hannah, she tries to look for the truck, and then she can't find it. They had already towed it. So, warning, if you leave your truck within 20 minutes, it's going to be gone, okay? Or vehicle on the freeway, so don't do that. So anyways, and so she picks me up, and we go look for it, still can't find it. So then I had to figure out, who do I call? Google. If someone just towed your truck in Houston, where does it go? And it's a thing called tow and go, just so FYI. And I end up finding it. But in that time of leaving, going to the funeral, and then, of course, it's rush hour, and you're in traffic, so you're just sitting there stewing and waiting in your storm and your problems because you can't get there fast enough. I find out where the truck is. And so all these fears start coming up in my mind of like, oh no, what's wrong with it? Oh no, where did it go? Oh no, even if I get to it, will it work? Will it start? How do I even do this? How much is it going to cost me? There's the fear of all these things, fear of the unknown. And that was the lack of speed to get there. So I was kind of like, Lord, if I made you mad, God, and I'm telling Hannah, I don't know, I guess I made God mad or the devil's mad at me. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something right. Who knows? But this is terrible. It's ruined the control I had over this day, my efficiency. It's ruined Hannah's day. It's kind of had this ripple effect, right? And I'm thinking, what are you going to do, right? So I end up finding it. I go to the place, and luckily I had a person that could help me that knew this truck pretty well, and I got some gas. And I put the gas in and do some things in the engine. If you're ever in the situation, I know what to do now. I was pumping gas in the engine, whatever. And it was one of those moments. I'm sitting in this tow yard, like, no, no, I'm thinking in my head, am I going to have to call it? Beep, is it dead? What if I just leave it here? What happens? Kind of thing. And I do it. I something to the engine again. I try it one more time, and I get back in the car, and I'm like, Lord, I don't know what I did, but forgive me my sins, Lord. Cleanse me of my unrighteousness. Make me new before the Lord. Help me start this truck, right? I go, no. I'm like, Lord, please. And then and I'm like, oh, thank God. And I run through the tow yard. It was really weird. I'm sure they thought I was very strange. But it started, right? And so then I get back to the front. Believe it or not, just in case if this ever happens to you, it's $240 to get your car out of the tow truck place, right? Guess how much they paid me at the funeral? $240. And I was like, not in the moment. I didn't feel good about it in the moment, but afterwards I was like, thank God, right? So it's like today was pretty much just a wash. I did a thing, and I spoke at a funeral, and they seemed to enjoy it, and they thought it was good, and then I paid out it was a wash, right? I didn't realize, and I realized it after. You don't realize it until usually after a storm that God uses those situations to get your attention, right? I thought that I was building my schedule, building all these things, and I thought I was doing this great thing. And God was trying to tell me, stop trying to control everything and trust me. You don't have to have it. If you got a plan, great. If it works out, awesome. But trust me that I have your best intentions in mind, because I have no idea what I might have been saved from because that happened. I have no clue. I can guess maybe it was a wreck. Maybe the thing was going to explode on me. I have no idea. But all I know is that God's trying to tell me, slow down and trust me. You don't have to control everything. And so this is what I learned from that faith is not in things, schedules, or the bank. Faith is in the one who's in the boat with you. Yeah. The one that is in the boat with you. That's where your faith belongs. So as that truck was dying, Jesus was with me. As I had to park and get out and run across like 6, 7 lanes in fear of my, Jesus was running with me. As I was frustrated, trying all this fear building up of like, what's this storm? How am I going to financially survive this? That feeling. How am I going to deal with this? Jesus was with me the entire time. So they're saying to him, Teacher, wake up. We're going down. We're going down. Do you even care? That's sometimes what we say to Jesus. Do you even care? I'm going down. This was Jesus' response for Mark 4:39 through 41. He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves. It's always funny when I read that. It's like, you bad wind and waves. You naughty wind and waves. He got up, rebuked the wind and waves, and said to the waves, quiet, be still. Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? They were terrified and asked each other, who is this? Even the wind and waves obey him. There was a lesson that they learned from this, and it's a lesson that you're going to learn from the storms that you face if you acknowledge and keep the presence of God with you, and remembering it's in his purpose that you can get out of these storms. It's a lesson that I learned last Thursday again, is that the fear of the storm was replaced with the fear of the Lord. They realized that no matter the size of this hurricane, no matter the size of the storm, the layoff, whatever it is, the bad news that you got from the doctor, the thing that you heard about your child, what you heard about the married couple that's not doing so well, what you heard about the mortgage that they can't pay anymore, no matter the size of the storm, we respect God more. Because he is bigger than that storm. He's bigger than that problem. And he's actually the one who can turn it all around. Because why he turns it all around, and the benefit to us, is because when we give it to him, he takes it and makes it for his purpose. Remember, his purposes are far better than any purpose we could ever conjure up on our own. His purpose, his schedules, his timing is way better than anything we could make or force on our own. So then when we give it over, he's able to take it and do something amazing with it. There's so many times in my life, in the lives of others that I've seen, that God has taken a terrible storm they didn't know how they're going to get out of, didn't know the solution, or there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and God took it, flipped it on its head, and made something amazing out of it. A beautiful miracle. So I ask you, whatever storm you're in right now, whatever storm you're coming out of, whatever storm you feel like you're going into, why are you so afraid? Why are you so afraid? The one who loves you, the one who died for you, the one who sacrificed for you, gave you a way to connect to him at any time. No matter the storm, all you have to do is say, Jesus, I need you, and he is there. Why are you so afraid? Why are you so afraid? When you're in the storm with his presence, it's always for his purpose. So my hope is not in a boat. My soul is anchored to the one who loves me most. So even the boat doesn't matter. The vehicle of survival doesn't matter, because the one that I am anchored to is eternal. And he did a thing for me that was everlasting, and nothing on this earth could ever change it or take it away from me. So why are you so afraid? Live in confidence. Whatever storm you're about to face or you're in right now, live in confidence knowing your God is stronger, your God is bigger. He has enough power to stand up and say, be still. and your storm will stop. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for your presence. Thank you that you came down to earth. You didn't just say it, but Lord, you literally, Jesus, you came to earth to be with us, to give us your presence, to teach us things, to show us the way. And then you did this amazing thing of sacrificing your life for us to create a bridge back to you so that anytime, no matter the storm, you're always in the boat with us. So right now, I pray that anybody who's hearing this message is in a storm right now, or they're going into a storm, I pray that they would remember that they would remember that you are present in their life, and that if they will hand it over to you, give you the storm, you will change it, transform it for your purposes. Lord, and your purpose is better than anything that we could ever make on our own. So Lord, give us the courage and give us the strength to stand up to our storms, to stand up to our chaos and our messes with you beside us, knowing that you will see us there. So Lord, bless these people as they go. Bless Village Heights, and let your will be done in our lives. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.